Encouragement to turn tragedies into your own triumphant life story? If so, this podcast is for you. Listen to powerful guests who have persevered through challenges so you can gain strength to build your championship life. The host of Professor of Perseverance podcast, Dr. James Purdue.
Hey, come on in. It's time for us to get motivated, inspired, get some inspiration, get the encouragement, to get some hope to know that when something comes in your life that you can move forward and still have a good life. May not be the perfect life, but you can still have a good one, everything going from there. Hey, today, our guest, I'm going to tell you what, if you're not alive and listening to this one, he was almost with you. Okay. I mean, he was almost with you. If you're not alive and listening, he was almost there with you. Okay. His memoir is a title that's coming out in the future, but his memoir in the future is called The Summer I Died 20 Times. Oh boy, this is going to be good. Now, if you're not living, you're dying. So let's move forward so we can all start living. Welcome to the show. Get you up here. Welcome to the show, Fred Rutman, A.K.A. Repeatedly Dead Fred.
Hi, James. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, and pleasure and I'm glad that you're here and on with us. Yeah.
Me too. That was quite the intro.
Oh, well, I do what I can, just not often enough. So, so appreciate it. And yeah, what a story. And my father, back when I was 15 years old, he passed away, and they did do shock heart and put a pacemaker in and brought him back to life. And he lived a couple of years and had a massive heart attack and died after that. But yeah, his was a one time brought me back to life 20 times, bud. 20. So tell you what, Fred, I'm going to shut up and I'm going to let you hop in where you think's best and give you the platform, and I'll jump in when I see fit.
Okay, thank you. This all started in the early summer of 2009, and I started collapsing, fainting, whatever you want to call it, randomly, and hitting my head. So whatever was the hardest object in the universe that was in proximity to my head, I smacked it.
There you
And I ended up with a whole bunch of concussions and, the ramifications of all those concussions happening concurrently. And it took the doctors a long time to figure out what was happening to me. And so I went through probably a lot of what you went through when you were initially injured, is a whole bunch of medical bias and miscommunication from the doctors and misdiagnoses and all that stuff, until they finally figured out that what was actually happening was my heart was stopping and I was clinically dead. So there's a variety of definitions of clinically dead. So I'm going with the basic: your heart stopped and you stopped breathing for more than 30 seconds. For some, it's, more than 60 seconds or, 90 seconds, whatever.
Is there a time limit they determine, like you said, clinically dead? You said 30 seconds. Do they say, well, he's not breathing, not heart beating, 5 seconds, he's dead? Oh, of course, they do the CPR until they finally give in. But is there a measurement in like time when they finally, and then, of course, you came back multiple times?
Well, I know that after 5 minutes of oxygen deprivation, brain damage starts to set in. So that would be harder to tell with me because I had brain damage going in. But it's like a lot of things medical. There's no exact definition for certain things. So I know that I was out for more than 5 minutes a couple of times. So it was not good. And I was never revived. They don't know why this happened to me, because this is a condition. It's called full heart block or third degree heart block. And it usually happens to men in their 70s. And so that's one of the reasons they weren't looking for it with me. They were just saying, fat, overweight, middle-aged white guy, you must be having a heart attack. And that's what they kept testing me for.
Mhm.
You would think, after the first 15 times you tested me for that and it didn't show up, you might think of trying to test for something else, but
Exactly.
that never really occurred to them. So, excuse me. Um, they eventually figured out that I needed a pacemaker, and that surgery we think didn't go well. I wasn't at one of the prime hospitals in my area, and this is in no way meant to bash the medical system because it is what it is, and I'm not going to change it.
Mhm.
But it's my experience on the front end was not really really good.
Yes.
Thankfully, my experience now, I've got a really good team around me, and things are much
Well,
better.
I mean, yeah, I understand not bashing because it's your experience, it's your perception, and I mean, they did the best they could at what they had, I guess. But
Mhm.
again, you may have had not a good one, then they may have 1,000 people that would come in and say, "Hey, yeah, yeah, yeah," you know what I'm saying? So I wouldn't consider it
Yeah.
bashing anybody. It's just your honest perception and truth. So yeah.
Mhm. So, towards the end of my hospital stay, before I got the pacemaker put in, they put on something called a Holter monitor. I don't know if you ever had to wear one. It's one of these portable ECG things that monitors your heart for 72 hours or whatever they set it for. Back then, it was a literally on tape recorder kind of setup. Now they're like super mini iPods or whatever is the current toy,
Hmm.
and they can just go forever. Um, so they put up me on one, and they said, "Okay, go home." And I'm like, "Okay, I'm collapsing right in front of you guys, and you want to send me home where I've got no assistance or oversight?" Yeah. So, okay, I had a crazy roommate, um, and he's pretty much monopolized our washroom. So I had to go to the washroom down the hall.
Uh-huh.
And when I went to the washroom, I had another episode and smacked my head off the concrete counter into the wall and blah, blah, blah. So, for whatever reason, my heart started again. And again, they don't know why my heart kept restarting. And I staggered back to the nurse's station, and I've got a black eye already, and blood streaming down my face. My glasses are broken, and the nurse is like, "What happened to you?" I said, "What do you think happened to me?"
That's right.
Had another episode, and she's like, "Oh, okay. Well, just get your stuff ready because we need the room." I'm like,
Wow.
"Sorry, no, I am not going. I'm not going anywhere." Um, sorry, I apologize for my earbuds, but I've lost some weight and they don't seem to sit in place anymore.
There you go.
So yeah. So maybe I should just switch to my regular speakers. Um, so I stayed over the weekend, and they didn't have anybody to read the Holter monitor because of budget cuts. So that was a Friday afternoon. Tuesday afternoon, this cardiologist comes running breathlessly into my room, and he's like, "Holy shit, your heart keeps stopping. This isn't good." I'm like,
Yeah.
duh.
That's right. Hey, you telling me?
Yeah, thanks for the insight.
Yeah, you telling
So,
me this is not good?
um, so they decided I needed a pacemaker, which another doctor had told them a few days before, but they wouldn't listen to him because he was from a small town. And uh, it was scheduled. That was Tuesday. I think it was scheduled for Thursday. But yet, knowing what had happened to me, you'd think they would give me some more oversight or say, "Don't get out of bed" or anything like that. But nothing, just nothing. So I had a few more
Wow.
episodes.
Wow.
Um, on
Hey,
the
if you drive
Thursday
here
morning.
today, drive here today, stop going home. We'll call you when it's time to get that pacemaker and drive back up here.
um, the Thursday morning, I had a nurse look in the door, and then I had another episode. I just stood up to stretch and cracked my head on that little dresser table thing you
Oh yeah,
have.
they have. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I woke up and or I came to, however you want to phrase it, and they were just about to hit me with the paddles. Um, but when this happens to my heart, the paddles won't help because it's not just once. I don't need one electrical charge. I need a continuous electrical charge, just like
Okay.
to keep your heart beating. And so I know from seeing other patients get code blued on the floor, it's not like on TV where they call a code blue and then all of a sudden, the 8 people that you need are right at bedside with the tools and the drugs and
Mm-hmm.
exactly knowing what to do. So that one for sure was over 3 minutes because I had seen that happen on the ward. And again, you would think after that incident, um, they'd say, well, let's put you in ICU where we can get you on, you know, real good oversight. But nope, they
Or
left
or
me
or
there.
the or the minimum, keep the crash cart in the room with you with everything, instead of waiting for it to come back, since they know the
Yeah,
history. Yeah, the minimum, at least that.
but nope, didn't.
Wow.
And about an hour later, I had another episode. Fortunately, I was in bed for this one, so I didn't crack my head. And when I revived, there was like 15 to 20 people in my room and doing who knows what. And once again, they were about to hit me with the paddles, and they had gone so far as to take my roommate out of the room with his entire bed. So I knew to get all these people to that point and my roommate out of the room and everything, it was well over 5 minutes.
Hmm.
So,
Wow.
and
It's
then they
yeah.
decided maybe we
Well, I was just
go
gonna
ahead,
say it's
please.
amazing. I was gonna say it's amazing. Um, like you said earlier, I knew about around 5 minutes they start talking about brain damage is setting in and stuff like that. So it's amazing that you didn't suffer major with so many occurrences on some brain damage.
Well, I think I did.
Oh, okay, okay. Now let me ask one question here.
Sure.
You mentioned earlier about all the falls and hitting your head, concussions, all them concussion there. Do you think of course, at that I don't know what time you're talking, but you remember that doctor came up with the concussion protocol, the CTE, I think it was, and football. Do you think a lot of that, some type of damage was up in? Of course, they say they can't tell all that until someone's passed away and have to actually go in and dissect the brain. So,
Hmm. It's possible, but I'll talk about that a little later
okay,
when I talk about my recovery. But I
okay,
definitely did have a lot of cognitive impairment.
hmm,
My balance was shot. My depth perception was shot. I had trouble finding words. I was slurring my words. Um, I lost a lot of memory on a lot of subjects.
hmm,
Uh, like you, I was a professor, so I had to basically relearn everything that I had to know at that point.
yeah.
It I'm Jewish, and I've been reading Hebrew since I was about 5, and we do prayers 3 times a day. My friends brought me my prayer book, and I went to do my evening prayers. I could no longer read Hebrew.
Oh wow,
It knocked an entire language out of my head.
wow.
So, and then there's the PTSD and post concussion and
Hmm.
stuff like that, and it's a unique experience for everybody. Some
I
people,
would think it would be very difficult because do you get signals, signs when this was happening? You knew it was coming. Well, obviously not because you're talking about hitting your head everywhere. Because you would think
yeah.
if you're getting some certain feeling, you're going, oh, I need to go sit down real quick. So obviously you weren't getting those. That's what I was going to ask.
No, not really. What would happen is I'd have what I would describe as a brain quake. It
Hmm.
was like a little earthquake going on in my head, and then all of a sudden it's fade to black.
Yeah,
And so I don't know exactly how long that took, but it certainly didn't give me any time to
yeah.
prepare myself or sit down or do anything like that. So, um, yeah, maybe I'll explain a little bit about what my condition is. And a full heart block is when the signals that are supposed to tell your atria and your ventricle to contract and pump blood,
Hmm.
that system dies and it stops sending the signals
Okay.
to the various areas to tell your heart what to do. So when your heart's not pumping, your blood pressure goes to zero. Uh, you have no blood going to your brain, no oxygen, so you collapse.
Hmm.
And then what happens. So fortunately for me, some reason the signals started going through again, and miracle. However you want to look at it, whatever your orientation is.
Yeah. The signal, did they start working again after the pacemaker's put in, or was this before the pacemaker?
Well, they started again uh, before the pacemaker. Like it's not really common for somebody to have a full heart block and be out for so long,
Hmm.
and then their heart to start up again.
Yeah.
Because there's a reason those blocks are there. Those signals are getting blocked, and for them to become unblocked all of a sudden, it's just really strange to the doctors. They
Just
don't
the
understand.
Hebrew within inside of you that you couldn't read was working miracles in you.
It's possible. It's possible.
So, I mean, that
If
that would be
you're
my explanation. That even though you wouldn't recognize and couldn't read it, it was subconsciously working.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a person of faith, whatever your faith orientation, you
Hmm.
can sort of look at this as, God doesn't make mistakes. Whichever God you're putting your bets on,
Hmm.
and if it was my time to go, it would have been my time to go. But
Hmm.
apparently, it wasn't. The question is why.
There you go, because there's a still a purpose for you out there. Because not to steal your thunder right now, but I attempted suicide 3 times in 3 days. That's how bad I wanted out. And obviously, I didn't die and everything, and had to see a psychologist for a year, and come to realize that God still has a purpose for me, no matter what I think. And I think part of my purpose is right here today with you,
Mhm.
to give this platform for you and many other people I've met in the last year and a half, to get their message out there. Not that I have to get mine all the time, but to get their message out there to as much people. And I think that's part of my service, or serving others, is part of my purpose now.
Yes, and I feel the same way now. Part of my purpose is getting my story out there to people
Mm,
um, who may not be exactly in my situation, but I'm probably walking beside you in some way, or you're walking beside me in some way,
yes.
and you know that there's not the horrible end you might have envisioned. There's something better.
Hmm.
Um,
I agree with you. Yeah. So,
um, so they put the pacemaker in, and so it's sort of like the old pocket watch size
oh,
little
yes.
supercomputer, and they run a couple of wires from it actually into your heart, and they plug them in like a fishing hook, so they anchor into your heart muscle, and that
Okay.
replaces the signals that have gone missing from your heart.
Hmm.
So that keeps you alive, and I'm 100% dependent on it. So if it stops, I stop. Um, so things were going well. I had no official roadmap for recovery. They gave me nothing. I was never given an MRI or a CT scan to see what was going on in my brain. And they just left me to my own devices. But I knew
Now,
instinctively.
let
Go
me
ahead.
ask this. Let me ask this, Fred. That sorry to interrupt you, but while it's on my mind, uh, they like you say, they were giving you insights on what to do and stuff. Is, I mean, this so rare that just they don't have enough information to know. Um,
I think generally with head trauma, it's sort of one of the last frontiers
well,
of
I
medicine.
mean with your heart, just the heart thing so rare. What's going on, that's why they didn't give you insight on what you ought to be doing or what they need to be looking for in the future.
The heart thing is so rare because it usually happens to men in their 70s,
Uh-huh.
and I was a
Okay, yeah,
man in my
you mentioned
40s.
that earlier. Yeah, you mentioned that
Yeah.
earlier. Okay. All right.
So, but pacemakers are pretty common. There's dozens of different types of pacemakers to correct different symptoms. Uh, they do about 800,000 pacemaker implants a year.
Oh, wow.
So it's
Okay.
not an uncommon
Yeah.
practice. Ideally, it should have been a 20-minute, 25-minute procedure, um, but it wasn't. So something happened during that procedure that manifested itself later on, we think.
Mhm.
So instinctively, I knew, losing weight and exercise would be helpful to me no matter what my situation. But I realized I had to upgrade myself mentally because so many things had been knocked out of my head. So I started taking another bunch of university level courses and courses on social media and learning finance and marketing and all the things that I had been teaching before, getting them back into my brain. And I
Mm-hmm.
was just about ready to go back to work. This had taken almost 4 years.
All right.
And I was out for a bike ride and boom, had another brain quake
Whoa.
and woke up in the middle of a park, in the middle of nowhere. And I thought, wow, this is weird. But, it can't be my heart stopping because I've got the pacemaker and they don't fail.
Mm-hmm.
So, maybe I've got some heat stroke or, whatever. So I went and sat under a tree and gulped a lot of water and took some metabolites and stuff like that. And then I felt, okay, I can go home. But then it kept happening over and over again. So finally, I went back to emergency, and they're perplexed again. They don't know what's going on, and eventually they figure out. One of the doctors put his hand on the pacemaker, and just don't know if you can see it, but just edged it like that,
Mm-hmm.
and I was gone.
Oh wow.
So they knew there was something malfunctioning in the pacemaker. And that's when
Wow.
they started digging down. And they realized that one of the pacemaker leads had cracked. So it's like, any wire you've got, it's got, insulation or covering
Mm-hmm.
around it.
The covering
And
coating, yeah.
it cracked. And so it was shorting out.
Yeah.
And that's what was happening to me. So,
Wow.
and unless you got back into the exact right position where the the cable cord was the lead was in the right place to transmit signals again, because the pacemaker was still sending them, they just weren't going through.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I would come back to life. So the plan
Assuming you
was
get in
to,
that right position
yeah,
to reconnect the break in it
yeah. So apparently, when
in the wiring, yeah. Okay.
after they induced this episode in me, they kept like pushing the pacemaker around to try and see when I'm going to come back.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I had to have a replacement surgery where the plan was to just uh, bypass that lead and put in a new one. And I got onto the table, and um, when I got onto the table, I didn't realize that unlike my first surgery, they don't put you to sleep anymore. They numb the area and then
Oh,
they just
okay.
start cutting away. So I'm laying there, and there's a huge scoreboard in front of you which monitors your vitals.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know who thought this is a good idea to have a patient awake and then you use like a laser scalpel right in front of you, and
Yeah.
they're cutting you open, and you can actually smell your flesh burning.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I,
With that
I
laser,
don't know.
yeah.
So I wasn't very comfortable with that. And then all of a sudden, I felt that brain quake, and I know because they told me I said this. I said, "Oh fuck, I'm gone,"
Mm-hmm.
and um, and then I was gone, and it hadn't even shown on the board yet. The board hadn't even monitored the change in my signals, is what I was told.
Oh wow. Yeah.
So,
This
um,
is remarkable listening to this. So I used to
yeah.
teach science, so it's one thing with
Hmm.
teaching the heart and circulatory system and stuff, and so this is amazing to me. So
Hmm. Um, I came to, according to the surgical report, about 8 to 12 seconds later. Um, but those reports are pretty sparse.
hmm
um, I think because of something we talked about earlier, is maybe doctors don't want to be sued. Um,
yeah, that's why I think they give you the worst, and the way if you look good, if you do better, then they look like okay, so I was wrong. But again, if they tell you something, don't tell you enough information, then you do get worse or whatever, then they'll sue you for malpractice. Is what I think. So I think they
Mhm.
always tell you the worst, and for you to shoot for better. So
Mhm. So when I revived, it was total bedlam in the surgical suite, and there were people running all over, and I was being shocked. They have these pacing pads. I don't remember them putting these on
mhm.
me, but they fire like every 2/3 of a second to mimic a heartbeat. But oh my god, these things hurt. I thought like I was being kicked in the ribs. I thought I was getting a beat down.
Oh wow,
Um, so so finally I said, okay, I'm back. Like I'm here. Like whoever's giving me the CPR or pounding on me, please stop.
yeah,
And one of the doctors says, "Shut the fuck up. We're trying to save your life." And another doctor says, "No, keep talking. We want to know you're okay."
that's right, that's right. So
And so they decided they had to get me a temporary pacemaker, which is probably about this size.
oh yeah, they're
Uh,
huge.
yeah, and run the wires up, but they didn't have one in the room, so they had to send somebody searching for it.
Oh wow,
So a nurse or an orderly comes back from the supply closet and says, "Here it is," and then the doctor says, "Well, where the fuck are the leads?" Oh, I'm supposed to, So it was a
I
total
was supposed to
cluster.
get everything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So,
So
so I'm gonna switch to my computer
yeah, go ahead and
speakers.
switch. And I don't know if you can hear any of this, but let me briefly interject here. But my neighbor had a bad heart, and she got a pacemaker put in, but she also got one of the first fibrillators that they would put in your heart. And
Oh yeah, yeah.
she said one time like I said, there was malfunctioning, and whenever she get up to take a step, all of a sudden she was getting shocked, and she would lean up against the wall finally, and she told her husband, "We got to get to the hospital, because every time I move, it's shocking me." And
And it's
yes,
painful,
I can
just so
imagine.
painful.
Yeah, from listening to her tell the story. And one time she was at church or something. Yeah, church is what it was, and they were talking about death or dying or something there, and they brought up and mentioned her and asked how many times she had passed away, and she had actually had 4 times to pass away, but she put up the number 5 with her 5 fingers, and all of a sudden dropped dead right there in church, and they brought her
Oh,
back again, but yeah, she had already been 4 times, but she put up 5 fingers. Boom, number 5 happened then. So, yeah.
that's incredible.
Alright, I'm sorry, go ahead, but, yeah, while you're doing that, I thought I'd interject that with my neighbor, yeah, walking around getting shocked and had to go in, and, yeah, they had to reprogram her, fibrillator, yeah, that was, put into her chest.
My buddy had one, and he described it as like getting kicked by a horse.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
So
yeah.
for a tiny little battery in a little device, it can sure pack a punch.
Yeah.
So
So
um, so they finally bring in all the parts, and they have to thread the pacemaker leads through a vein or an artery, and they decided they were going to go through the femoral artery, which is one of your longest arteries, and they
mhm,
have to go in through the groin.
mhm.
But in the 10 or 12 or whatever number of minutes of time that this had been going on, nobody thought to sterilize my groin or put in any sort of
Oh,
numbing.
no. There you go.
So here comes the scalpel, and oh my god, did that hurt? That was like
Yeah,
so
I can
painful.
imagine.
And they threaded the leads in, and they weren't sure how well anchored they were in my heart. So I was told I couldn't move until they went for surgery number 2, or I guess number 3.
Mhm.
So I was on bed rest and not able to move for 7 days until they were sure I didn't have an infection.
Yeah.
So then the day comes, they decide they're going to give this another shot. So I said, okay, we're not using this laser scalpel. We're not using whatever those other weird smells that were all around. Like, we're changing this game.
Yes.
And so we went in and they started to work on me. And I noticed I started falling asleep. And there was no reason for me to start falling asleep unless I'd been there a while.
Hmm.
And then I wake up and I see we're well past the 1 hour mark in this surgery that's supposed to take 20, 25 minutes.
Yeah.
And I see my surgeon is on the phone doing a video chat with other uh, surgeons around the world trying to figure something out. And what it turns out, I learned later, is that they couldn't thread the new lead into my vein because it
Oh
had
wow.
collapsed.
Oh no.
So the the theory is, and this is, you can go all Area 51 with these theories and
Yeah, there
conspiracy,
you go. There you go.
um, that in the first surgery something went wrong and it collapsed the vein. This is going back to 2009, and that's what led to the cracking of the lead.
Okay.
So I fell asleep a whole bunch more times, and I have no idea how they figured out how to get this lead in there eventually. I don't know if they, lubed it up with some sort of oil or
Hmm.
whatever
Yeah.
they did, but they got it in there, and supposedly, hey, I'm saved again, and I'm alive, and I can go back to normal. Um, which of course
Whatever
worked really
normal is
well.
now, right?
Yeah. Um, until it happened again in 2018
Wow. Now, when did this
and
first start? What year?
2009.
9, and now we're in 18. Okay, 9 years later. Okay.
Yeah. So again, they couldn't figure out what was going on because they're not looking for a pacemaker error
Error.
because
Hmm.
it's odd enough for it to happen once, but to happen twice, like
Yeah.
that's crazy. So we consulted with doctors around the world, and they decided screw the one that's in there and malfunctioning. Let's just start from zero. So the pacemaker was on the left side of my chest. They were going to put a brand new one on the right side, new leads. Everything should be good. Except for this surgery, I said to the doctor, you know what I've been through? If you're going to kill me again, I don't want any part of this. So I want to go back to sleep for this one.
Hmm.
And I knew what time I went into surgery. So I'll say 1 o'clock. I don't remember the exact time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And when I came out of the anesthesia, it was like 5:30. So
Oh
I
wow.
knew something didn't go right.
Hmm.
And it turns out
And again,
they
this
could
is
only,
supposed to be roughly a 20-minute surgery,
yeah,
roughly. Okay.
yeah,
And then here it is 4.5 hours, whatnot.
yeah. So they had used a lot more anesthesia on me than they were happy to do or they
Hmm.
wanted to do. And it turned out they could only get one of the leads from the new pacemaker into my heart. For some reason, they couldn't get the second one in, whether there were already too many leads or whatever the problem was never really explained to me. So they had to figure out some sort of system to keep my heart beating. And what they decided on is that the new pacemaker was going to be a backup, and it has sensors on it, and it would sense when my heart wasn't beating,
Hmm.
and it would start sending signals until the original one kicked in.
Oh
So
wow.
it's a brilliant fix.
Uh-huh.
And I was told at the time, and I don't know if this is, urban myth, hospital mythology. I was one of 8 people in the world that had a pacemaker set up where I've got 2 pacemakers running simultaneously.
I was going to say you're the medical guinea pig at this point.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Um, so it worked. It wasn't an exact science
Hmm.
because sometimes, the sensor didn't pick up that my heart had stopped, and you definitely find times when you're,
Yeah.
and then, things start pacing again. Um, and over time, they kept refining it and adjusting the sensors and everything. So it's been pretty good. We're here in 2022, and I haven't had any episodes for about 4 to 6 months. So
Okay.
that's
Oh, so
been
you
good.
still, other than 4 to 6 months, you're still having little episodes. I say
Yeah,
little.
because
I say
because
little. It's
the
little to me. It's not little to you.
yeah, well, relatively they're little for me.
Okay. Okay.
Um, and so that's good that they finally got the system working right. The problem coming up in probably about 9 months is that the battery in the original pacemaker
Uh,
is running out of juice,
mm-hmm.
and it's going to need to be replaced.
Yeah.
So, so I know I
I,
have another surgery coming up. I guess in the near future, and we're
they
not
need to get
exactly
that
sure.
Energizer bunny rabbit in your heart, in your chest.
Yeah. So there's a couple of options. They can try the traditional thing, just pull it out and try and reconnect it and see what happens, and just leave it, with the two
Mm-hmm.
pacemakers running. Or they can try something called a lead extraction, where they try and pull the leads out of your heart and put in all new hardware. But they know because that vein has collapsed, they won't be
Mm-hmm.
able to get the laser in there.
Yeah.
So this would likely have to be an open heart surgery where they cut you open and they actually open your heart up
Yeah. Just
and
going in.
little laser in and disconnect things somehow. So
I,
it,
I
it
just don't understand leads and leaving the leads in. I understand maybe to do more damage trying to pull them out where it's connected in the heart. I understand
yeah.
that, but it is a little a lot different, but kind of the same. They were doing experimental stuff where they were putting these lead wires in to quadriplegics or paraplegics legs, and you'd have
Hmm.
15, 20 of these leads going into a box that's on your belt, and it would
Hmm.
help you try to stand and walk. But then when the
Yeah.
lead would break, they wouldn't take the old wire out. They just insert a new one. But then this one guy got infection so bad from all the
Yeah.
leads left. So that's why when you say they left those in, I'm thinking, what if them things get corroded inside there, and whatever else is going to happen? So yeah,
I'm not sure exactly what they're made out of,
yeah,
but I know people have had leads in there for 20, 30 years with no
okay.
problem. Um, so, and
I'm
eventually
just
they're.
saying. I'm just thinking of the old leads that's not being active, that
Mhm.
they leaving in there. I mean, I understand they got to be in there to work. I do understand that, but like you said, you had that one that was bad, and they just bypassed it, left it in there and bypassed it. And you would
Yeah.
think that that lead where it was cracked, the insulation cracked, somehow would get corroded or something. You would think, and
Yeah.
so yeah, no, I understand you perfectly. The ones that are working, you got to have them in there to make them work. I just don't understand leaving the one that's not working in there.
Yeah. Well, it's a major surgery to get it out, apparently. So,
Apparently so. Like I was saying earlier, it may cause more damage trying to get them out
mhm.
than leaving them in. Yeah.
um, I mean, if you think about, when people get a hip replaced or a knee replaced, I guess they use titanium and ceramics,
Hmm.
um, and those stay in there for decades as well.
Yeah.
So far, you know, there's no corrosion or anything causing me problems. So
Amen,
hopefully
brother.
it'll stay that way. So, um, at this point after this surgery, I went to my therapist and I'd been sort of working on this book, um,
Hmm.
more as a therapy thing. Like, what do you remember, and all these things, and jotting down notes and hoping it would be cathartic.
Yeah.
And I said to her, "What do you remember from when this first happened?" And she said, "I remember being freaked out like you wouldn't believe." And I mean, she's an MD; she's
Hmm.
seen a lot.
Yeah.
And then her second thought, because she's a psychiatrist, was, "I can't believe you're any degree of functional at all
Oh,
after the amount of times you've had concussions and you know
bouncing your head off the floor like a basketball. Yeah.
yeah." So so that tells you, when she thinks I'm that battered, I was pretty battered.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I'm going to take a step back, if you don't mind. I'm not sure how we are on time. Um,
We got a few
to
more minutes.
how I actually went about recovering.
Yes.
So in the February of 2018, the same year as this last surgery, I was seeing my cardiologist for a regular checkup. And he comes into the exam room and he throws a book at me. And he says, buy this, read this, do this, but only after we get buy-in from all your other doctors. So
Sure.
I say, okay, what's this book? The book is called The Obesity Code by Dr. Jason Fung.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a nephrologist, a kidney specialist in Toronto, who was sick of seeing his patients lose their kidneys and limbs, etc., from type 2 diabetes. And he knew a little bit about intermittent fasting,
Mm-hmm.
and he realized that it was an excellent tool for helping people reverse their type 2 diabetes.
Okay.
And, of course, lose weight and all that other good stuff. So he's helped hundreds of people reverse their type 2 diabetes, which we're always told is just a chronic condition.
Mm-hmm.
And I also had type 2 diabetes. I didn't know it, but the first time I went in the hospital in 2009, they said, you've got type 2 diabetes. You've essentially got, your blood is so thick, it's essentially like caramel.
Yeah.
And, we got to get this down. So they put me on insulin. And the traditional treatment is carbs are bad for you because your sugars are already high. So we're going to give you insulin and tell you to eat them with even more carbs. Like, it's just
Yeah.
mind boggling how anybody thinks this is a good situation. Like, how about you give me no carbs and a lot less insulin and see what happens?
Yeah. That
So,
sounds the right way, doesn't it?
yeah, but it's hard to get these doctors to move off their cognitive bias or even the dietitians.
Mm-hmm.
So he sent a letter to all my other doctors to get buy-in because if I'm going to try intermittent fasting, it can affect your medication doses and all
Mm-hmm.
sorts of other things. So
Yeah.
um, so we went along with it, and then probably I started in May of 2018. By December of 2018, I had reversed my type 2 diabetes and I was off insulin.
All right. Awesome.
Yeah. So, what they're telling you about these chronic conditions that can't be managed is a bit of a misdiagnosis and
Mm-hmm.
miseducation on the medical profession's part. So, um, I ended up being a moderator in a fasting group that ended up being about 335,000 people.
Wow.
So, I've helped coach thousands of people, and
Mm-hmm.
this isn't just something I see that happened to me. I'm seeing it in real life happening to
Oh yeah.
thousands of people.
Firsthand. Firsthand.
Um, and some people say, well, this is only anecdotal evidence. It's only anecdotal if you have like two or three examples. But when
Mm-hmm.
you have literally thousands of people around the world having the same experience from doing intermittent fasting, I don't
Mm-hmm.
think that's anecdotal anymore.
No.
So I think at this point I have to do a medical disclaimer to anybody if they're thinking of trying intermittent fasting. Don't do it without working things out with your doctors first.
I would say don't pay attention to anything you have to say. I have to say, check with
Mhm,
your medical team and doctors, and y'all come up with a plan that's best suited for you. Uh, my doctor is not in medical, so I
mhm,
can't. I can't write out a prescription, but I can drive you to your pharmacist and pick some up for you if you need me to. But
mhm.
that's as far as I can go. So yeah, everybody's listening. Be sure to check with your medical team, and y'all come together with the best plan possible, but it's nothing wrong with suggestion this intermittent that you're talking about and see what your
Mhm.
medical team thinks of. Let them do the research. They're the doctors.
Yeah. The best book I found, if you don't mind me plugging a book,
No,
not
go ahead.
mine, is I don't know if you can see this. It's called
Yeah.
Fast, Feast, Repeat.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe get rid of the
There we
there.
go.
By Jen Stevens, who, like you, is a doctor but not a medical doctor. I'm guessing your doctorate's in education,
Yes, sir.
which is hers as well. So, um,
Fast, feast, repeat.
yeah, New
All
York
right.
Times bestseller. It's pretty easy to find. Um, and that will give you a really solid basis for how intermittent fasting works.
Okay. All
And
right.
um, everybody's journey in intermittent fasting is going to be different because even though our bodies are all the same, we have different availabilities and different gut biomes and
Oh
um,
yeah. There's
you know,
there's multiple ways. Yeah. We're all different, and so results are going to vary with
mhm,
everybody. So don't expect it's not a one size fit all thing.
mhm.
So
But the community that Jen created with the 335,000 people, that's what it was based on, was that everybody was different and we were going to give you guidance to try and help you with your individual
mhm,
journey. So
yes.
not just standard, one size fits all
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
thing.
yeah. And that's what it should be on everything is try to find what's best for you, not because the average this would happen and now you get thrown in. We talked earlier before we got on together, this is what all spinal cord injuries. So James, don't expect to do this, or this. And instead of individually see how much I improved, and then we go from there. Yeah.
Mhm.
So
So one of the most fascinating things we've learned over the last few years about intermittent fasting is that initially people used it for weight loss, but what it really does is it triggers a whole bunch of epigenetic systems in your body to start healing things that we didn't even know that it could do. So if you look up a TED talk by Dr. Mark Matson, or it might be a TEDx, um, he's a lead researcher at Johns Hopkins, and he talks about the neurological benefits and nerve regeneration and healing and things of that nature that occur because of intermittent fasting.
mhm.
So when I say that I attribute the large majority of my recovery to it and getting my cognitive faculties back, I do believe that's from the intermittent fasting and the neurological benefits that it's helped activate.
Okay. I can see into the intermittent again. If like I said, people have used it. I've used it to lose weight, but
Mhm,
the other benefits that were not studied, at that time that they know more about nowadays. Yeah,
mhm.
I can see the benefit of it of doing that. So,
Yeah, I've seen people with thyroid conditions reverse it. Personally, I mean, I reversed my type 2 diabetes.
hmm
Um, my sleep apnea has gone away. My asthma's gone away. A whole bunch of other things have gone away. I had diabetic retinopathy in my eye. They were very close to doing surgery,
hmm
and it disappeared.
okay,
Um, women report their C-section scars disappearing, and we know why. It's called a process called autophagy. Um, and all sorts of other medical conditions, especially the autoimmune conditions,
hmm
uh, start to reverse themselves. The rheumatoid arthritis, the lupus, and all sorts of other things. So it's actually, as Jen Stevens says, it's a health plan with a side benefit of weight loss.
there you go. And other benefits. That's right. Other benefits other than the
Mhm.
weight loss. So,
Yeah.
all right. Wow, Fred. Repeatedly Dead Fred, A.K.A. We
Yes.
appreciate you being here sharing your story, man. This has been remarkable. Again, I'm just fascinated with all this and going on. Again, I used to teach science and the heart and circulatory system, so I can understand through here. And anybody else, again, remember, consult your medical team. There's nothing wrong with reading the book, though. Fast, Feast, and Repeat
Mhm.
by
Jen Stevens.
there you go. And nothing wrong with getting educated. And then again, talk to your physician and medical team and see if it maybe possibly do something to help you. But consult your medical team. Don't listen to the doctor here because again, mine's not in medical. So
Mhm.
All right. Repeatedly Dead Fred. Hey, tell people your website and social media, how they may want to get hold of you, maybe get some more insight and coaching,
Uh,
something.
the easiest thing is just look me up on Instagram. I've just got a basically new account, but it's repeatedly dead Fred on Instagram. So you can find me there and you can just message me on there, or repeatedly.dead.fred@gmail.com.
Okay. And I'll put those in the show notes as well. And also, I'll put your link of your video as an introduction for people to go listen and watch on your Instagram. That's where I saw that a while ago, part of it, I told you. And so I'll put that link in there as well. So,
Thank you.
hey, Fred, we know there's people hurting and struggling today. And if you can leave us with a positive message to help them get through today, man, that'd be a blessing.
Sure. I've got kind of two things.
Go ahead.
Um, there's a psychiatrist from long ago. He was a Holocaust survivor named Viktor Frankl.
The old Victor, I
And,
read his book.
he went through the camps and everything like that. And he says, if you have hope, you can survive anything. It's, um, and secondly, stop comparing yourself to other people's journeys. Um, joy or comparison is the thief of joy. And unlike our current supply chains, which are having lots of trouble,
Mm-hmm.
there is no limit on hope and joy. It's just there for you to grab it. And it may not be easy to do it at the time, but the more you try, the more you strengthen those muscles. It's just like inoculating yourself and giving you protection. So whatever you can do to feed yourself with hope and joy, whether it's books or something religious or a group you get affiliated with, um, do whatever you can to start pumping those two things into your body.
All right. Thank you, Fred. And just to back up a little bit here on the hope, a friend of mine, Bird Baggett, had him on a few weeks ago, and he is coming up with his mission at 72, and he's wanting to provide hope to as many people as he can. He started a mission called Million Hearts Mission, and he gets provide hope to people. And the one thing he was quoted saying, you can go 40 days without food, 4 days without water, and then he said 4 seconds without hope. And
Mm-hmm.
and so that's what he used as part of his when you talk about hope. As long as we can grasp that hope, we're in good shape.
Absolutely. It's brilliant.
All right, Fred, thank you. Repeatedly Dead Fred, thank you for coming in. I'm glad that I hope you don't have any more repeatedly dead Freds, but I'm
Me
glad
too.
you're here. I'm glad that you have gotten well enough that you're out here promoting and pushing and giving hope to other people and definitely showing a lot of perseverance. So, again, Fred,
Thank you.
thank you. Everybody else, hey, I'm Dr. James Purdue, the professor of perseverance. And yeah, thank you for listening to the Professor of Perseverance podcast. Do something today, tomorrow, something next week that's going to help you persevere past your paralysis.